Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I'm doing mistakes, mispresses, or more accurately probably for this video, misprints and mysteries part 2. Now, when I did part 1, I didn't necessarily expect there to be a part 2, so thus I didn't call it part 1. But a couple of things happened recently that made me think I should do a part 2. Number one, my first video, part 1, is my most watched video, I think, so far. So that made me think there's a bit of interest in this. Also, I got a record in the mail that fit this category, and I thought, that would be good for that, for another show on mistakes or mispresses or misprints. And then so I started to have a look through my collection and found some other things that I think fit that category. Probably a lot of mysteries here, some mistakes, and also some not so much mispress. So the record's correct, but the misprinting. Maybe the cover's been printed incorrectly, or the label on the record's been printed incorrectly. So, like I said, I got a record in the mail that gave me an idea for doing a part 2. And the record I got in the mail, actually, I purchased this record after doing lesser known hard rock and metal female fronted bands. It was Nathan JJ from Tokyo Vinyl, great channel, check it out. He suggested to me Leather Leone, and I know about Leather Leone, and of course she's done work with Chastain as well. She's a great vocalist, and I thought, yeah, I got some digital, I've got her stuff digitally downloaded, but nothing physical. So I thought I should get one of her records. So I picked up Leather and Shockwaves. So I got this in the mail, and I thought, yeah, this is going to be great. Got the record out, and looked at the record, and I don't know if you guys can see this, but it actually says Maisie, Attack of the Neon Shark on the label. So that was the first thing I saw, and I obviously was a little bit disappointed. I was thinking, oh great, they've sent me the wrong record. But then I turned it around and looked at the other side. You guys can see that. And it has the correct label on the other side. So it's only incorrectly labeled on one side. Now I have Attack of the Neon Shark, so that was another reason I didn't want another record, another vinyl copy of it. So I thought, well, there's some hope here, because maybe it's just one side of the record has been labelled incorrectly, and that's exactly what it was. So it is the album that I wanted. It's just, for whatever reason, it's got Maisie, Attack of the Neon Shark label on one side. Not a big deal. Kind of interesting. But like I say, initially I was like, oh my goodness, they've sent me the wrong record. But that wasn't the case. And great record. And probably one I will feature coming up, because I've still got some more shows, or at least one more show to do on female-fronted hard rock and metal, and I'll make sure that record goes on it. But I just wanted to show it for today's show as well. Alright, next up, this is another misprint. I may have showed this record on my show before, maybe when I was doing compilations. Compilations, not complications. So you see here, Heavy Metal Records Canada, and it's a complication album. I find that kind of funny. Right, next one. So also on my last show, when I did mistakes and mispresses and misprints and mysteries, I showed this one. This is Bonfire, Fireworks, and I showed how track 4 on side 2, it's just like I've got a question mark. And it kind of got me thinking, like, well, how did this happen? And then it got me thinking a little bit about something I never really thought about before, that maybe the process of making records involves two different businesses, and in the sense of, like, the people who make the record covers are not necessarily the people who make the vinyl. And so maybe the covers get made first, or maybe the covers get made before things like the track listings and the sequence of the tracks has been finalized. So I never really thought about that before, but that's what I'm pretty sure has happened here. they've been told, yeah, can you go off and create the covers for the new Bonfire album? They've given the artwork, all that kind of stuff. But we're not actually sure what tracks we're going to put on the album yet. We're pretty sure about this sequence, but we're not sure, what's going to be track 4 on side 2. And it's unusual though that they just put question mark. They just said, "Oh, look, let's just make the album. We'll just put a question mark on there." I don't know if that's what happened, but it's labelled correctly on the record itself, as I showed on last time. But I think that sometimes is what happens, and also sometimes you'd get a record and there'd be a song listed on the track listing that actually isn't on the album, and then maybe it turns up later on or as a B-side. So again, that's sort of, we decided at the last minute not to include that song or to replace it with another song. So I think my thinking is this is why sometimes you get albums like this. This is Motley Crue, Theatre of Pain, where the back cover, it's just all the songs on the album, but they're not in the correct order. And it does actually say here, C label for sequence. So they've gone and they've done the cover, the back cover and the front cover, but they haven't put it in sequence. And my thinking is because at this stage, maybe that hasn't been finalised. They know that these are going to be the songs, but they don't necessarily know the sequence of the song. So it's like, let's go and do the cover, and it doesn't matter. We can then, when we actually go and press the record, we finalise the track listing and the track order. It doesn't matter what we've done on the back cover. So at least they tell you here, see label for sequence. There's another example where the back cover just has a list of songs. This is from the Van Halen debut album, and if you look on the back cover, it's just got a list of songs. They all are, but they're not in the correct order. And there's no side 1 or side 2 or side A, side B. It's just a whole list of the songs. And they don't tell you that this is not necessarily the correct order, but all the songs are listed down there, which actually is a pretty good effort for Van Halen, because one thing I noticed, actually, I think it was maybe my top 10 albums from 1985 or 86, I'm not sure which one, but it would have been my top 10 from 1986. I talked about this Van Halen album and the fact that actually it has no tracks listed on the back cover at all. And actually, there are no tracks listed on the back of the 1984 album or on the back of the OU812 album. So that was something that I noticed with 5150, and then I went back and I had a look at 1984 OU812. They also do not have the tracks listed on the back cover, so they haven't even bothered to these are the songs. I'm not sure what order they're going to be in yet. They've just not bothered putting them down there. And like I said in my 1986 video, that's just like, hey, they just decided, hey, we're Van Halen. You like us? Doesn't really matter what the song titles are. You're going to buy a record if you want to hear us. So, and maybe that was it. But I thought that was pretty interesting. So there's like 3 albums there in a row where the song titles are not on the back cover. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge does have the song titles. They did have the song titles on the back cover. So that's where they got back into doing that again. But for those 3 albums they didn't. On OU812 they do have a sticker here, which has got, and I think it's pretty sure it's in the right order too. But they've actually just stuck on there includes, which is basically all the songs. So they put a sticker on there to let people know about the songs. But to me that doesn't really count. They've put the sticker on later on. The cover itself does not have the tracks listed on it. Another thing that's interesting about the 1984 album is when you turn it around, it's actually upside down. At least my copy is. Now, I don't know if all copies are like this. I don't think they are. Yeah, upside down back cover. I don't think it's intentional, but there was some thinking that perhaps this cover wouldn't be perhaps appropriate. Some shops might not want to have a smoking baby on the cover, so that you could turn it around and go, we'll just make this the cover. When people see it, they'll just think, oh, it's Van Halen 1984. Maybe, I don't know. But here we go. So upside down cover. All right, so that's Van Halen. Now I'm going to talk about some Japanese albums or Japanese releases of albums. They're kind of interesting because for whatever reason, sometimes the Japanese release is a little bit different to the release in other countries. It could be the covers different, or the track listing, or song titles are different. So here's an example of that. This is Loudness. This is the Japanese copy of the album Shadows of War. And this is Loudness and Lightning Strikes. They're exactly the same. This is exactly the same album. So both of these are exactly the same album. This is the Japanese edition. This is the edition that was released outside of Japan. So yeah, different artwork. Also, interestingly enough, the song on here called on this one called Ashes of War is called Ashes in the Sky. So Ashes in the Sky is called Shadows of War on this album. So they've changed the title. That's the same song. Also, the track listings are different. But yeah, so just I don't know why they would do that. There's a few months difference. Like this, when this was released in Japan first of all, and then a few months later this was released outside of Japan. But sort of a mystery, I suppose, isn't it? Like why that happened or happens. Because it also happened, the Japanese release. Now, I don't have the Japanese release for this, but it also happened with this one. This is Paul Di'Anno from Iron Maiden. So this is his first solo album. He just called it Di'Anno. And it's just self-titled. But what's interesting is that the Japanese version, exactly the same album, but they called it Two Swimmers and a Bag of Jockeys, which is like a slang term for fish and chips. So it's pretty much the same. I think the back cover's a bit different too. But they, and you know, like, you think if you're going to call it that in like England or the UK, you know, where they actually understand what that slang term means. But no, they got in the Japanese release of this album, they've called it Two Swimmers and a Bag of Jockeys. So yeah, otherwise there's nothing else different about the album. Interesting thing about this album too, it's got the song Heart User, which was also a Cliff Richard single. So and it wasn't written by Cliff Richard. It's a good song too. I really like it, but interesting, and it kind of lets you know kind of sound that they were doing on this particular album. This is not, if you like Iron Maiden, you may not like this album, but I like it. It's a good album, but it's not that heavy. All right. Next up, now this one is, I think this is going to be in the mistake category. This is an album by a band called Treat and Scratch and Bite. Probably the only Treat album I like, which is probably a bit surprising. I've got a lot of their other albums, and I've really made a bit of an effort. Maybe I need to make a bit more effort to get into them, because they seem like the kind of band I would like. But the follow-up albums, some of their more recent, they're still putting out albums. Some of their more recent albums actually sound pretty good, but I'm talking about the ones they put out in the 80s after this. Yeah, just really didn't do it for me that much. But I have got them, and I'll maybe give them a few more spins and try and get into them. But I do really like this album. And it could be, too, that I got this album back in the 80s, and there are other albums I've sort of caught up on later on. So this is the first Treat album I got, and I really like this album. But there's a bit of a problem with the cover. So you'll see here there's some fingers coming through the cover, and that's coming from the lady on the other side. Her fingers are coming through, and they match up quite perfectly. Probably hard to see on the video, but her fingers come through, match up quite perfectly. What's wrong, however, is she's upside down. So if her hands are coming through, I'm not quite sure why and it's a bit unusual in itself. Like, what is she doing with her tongue out? I mean, yeah, who knows? The album is called Scratch and Bite, but yeah, it doesn't really make sense that she's got her hand coming through, but then her head's upside down. So to me, it always seems as though, again, it's a bit like the cover's upside down. It should be like that, but instead, it's like that, which makes sense, so it matches up with the fingers. if you to truly know what I'm talking about, you might be still a bit confused. You probably need to have a look at the copy of the album if you've got this album. Good album. All right. Next, I'm going to talk about a couple of albums where a song has been released again. So, in other words, it's on the artist, puts the song on their album, and then on the next album, that song is on the album again. So I'm going to call that, I guess, a little bit of a mystery, and maybe try and work out or give you my thinking as to why this would happen. So there's nothing different about the song; it's just repeated again on their next album. So an example of this, I've got a couple of examples. This is Silent Rage. So this is their debut album, and there's a song on here called Rebel with a Cause. It's written and produced by Paul Sabu, who I talk about sometimes on my channel. From Only Child. Unruly Child. No, Only Child. Yeah, that's a different band. Only Child. That's a great band. But he's also done some solo work as well. And quite a well-known producer, songwriter. Still putting out songs and producing, these days as well. But back in the 80s, he was pretty busy. And this is a really good song. So it's Rebel with a Cause, and it was released as a single. And then, so that's Silent Rage, and then 1989, Silent Rage released their second album. Now this one is, you can sort of see why hair metal kind of gets a bad name, and maybe it was. Eventually it just kind of faded away because, covers like this and with titles like this, they're probably not doing themselves a lot of favours. I mean, so Don't Touch Me There. Again, I don't even know how that really makes sense when you're posing like this and then the title's Don't Touch Me There. But anyway, so this is Silent Rage, and from 1989, and this album also has Rebel with a Cause on it as well. Same song, I put it on here again. This time again, it's also released as a single, and there's a music video that you can watch as well. And like I said, it's a really good song. Probably be my favourite Silent Rage song. I think it's the best song on this album. This album's better. I'm not a big fan of their previous album. This album is actually better. It's on Simmons Records, so Gene Simmons. I don't know if he had much to do with this. I know that there's a song on here called All Night Long, which is written by Bruce Kulick and Adam Mitchell. So maybe at one stage that was even thought about as being a Kiss song. But yeah, so Rebel with a Cause was on their previous album and is on this album again. And the only thing I can think is that maybe Gene Simmons heard it, said, "Hey, that is a great song. I don't care that it's on your previous album. Put it out again. We'll make a music video. It's going to be a massive hit." And to be honest with you, I can totally understand that thinking. It's got a great hook. It's a good song. But that isn't what happened. And they did come back and I think they've released a couple more albums after this one. And actually the vocalist Jesse Damon, he's released some quite good solo albums as well, and he's still working with Paul Sabu also. Alright, so that was one example where a song has been repeated on the next album, and this is here's another example. This is LA Guns, Hollywood Vampires, and the song that is repeated is Crystal Eyes. So it's on this album. So this one came out in 1991. And then it's also on this album, which came out in 1994. So exactly the same song. So this was, this was not as successful as their previous album, Cocked and Loaded. But, I guess, again, one of those situations where they thought, Crystal Eyes, that's a great, and it is a good song. I really like that song. So again, it's another situation where I can understand the thinking. It's a really good song. It didn't really hit for us last time. Maybe we'll just try it again. I don't know if it got released as a single. I don't think it did. But it does have, you can imagine it being a hit. But again, 1991, I mean, still, bands like this were still popular, but it was, of course, Nirvana came out in 91. they were starting to lose popularity, and then this came out in '94. So things are really not looking so good for bands like LA Guns at that time. But yeah, always a mystery, bit of a mystery to me why that song is on 2 albums. All right, talk about I guess songs being on more than one album. Now, this is not quite the same, but this is where a song is released as a B-side, and then that song appears on that artist's next album. So it was a B-side, and they've decided, hey, actually, that song we had on that B-side, on our last sort of album cycle, we had a song on our, why don't we put it on the next album? And so the song is, the band is Def Leppard, and the song is Tear It Down. So this is the 7-inch single for Animal. Hysteria was the album. And one song that didn't make the album was Tear It Down. And it's, a great song, really good song. But there's lots of really good B-sides, of course, from, I think anyway, a few good B-sides from the Hysteria sessions. But so then when they come along and do Adrenalize, the last song on the album is a song called Tear It Down. So I guess they, again, one of those situations where they thought, hey, that's a really good song, why don't we put it on the album? Either that, or I think perhaps with this album, they didn't have the number of ideas or great songs perhaps that they'd had for Hysteria, and they were sort of like, we've got to get up to at least 10 songs, let's use that one. Again, I really like that song, but, did I really want to hear it again on the next album? I guess to put it on a studio album is kind of nice, because, it's only on a B-side, you want it on a studio album. So it's kind of nice in that sense, and, I'd probably have to say it's my favourite song. I'm not a big fan of this album, so it's probably my favourite song on this album, but interesting, it came actually from the Hysteria sessions. I think they did re-record it, so it's a slightly different version, but I don't really notice much difference. Alright, so sticking with Def Leppard, and also maybe going back to a little bit of the Japanese stuff I was talking about before, I'm going to show you. Well, first, this is Def Leppard, High and Dry. Everyone knows this album, pretty well-known album. But the B-side to, I think it was, Bringing On the Heartbreak, there was a B-side to that single. And the B-side was Me and My Wine. And really good song. And then so when they reissued, when of course, Pyromania came out and they got quite big, they did a reissue of the album. This one came out in 1984. And actually it's not, this is not a Japanese situation, it's actually a Canadian, this is a Canadian press. But so it got reissued, and they've got some extra tracks on it, and one of them is Me and My Wine. There's also there's a remix of Bringing On the Heartbreak on here as well. But just interesting that Me and My Wine did not make this version, the first pressing of the album, or the first release of the album, and then it was on the reissue. And it's a really good song. They even did a music video for it. So when this was, reissued with the Me and My Wine on it, they did a music video, which is kind of cool too. But then that song has sort of disappeared. Like, so when they have other pressings of High and Dry, Me and My Wine's not on there. I don't know why that would be, because it's a really good song. But I just thought I'd mention that in case you were not aware of that song. Like I said, it was a B-side, but then you can also get it on the album itself, but only on a few releases. I think only maybe the 1984 reissue. All right, next one. This is Hearing Aid. So this is a great compilation album. My friend Dan from Off the Charts got me thinking about this one because he mentioned it as one of his top albums from 1986. Of course, Stars is such a great song. But I find the back cover quite interesting because it's just got, it says here, plus 8 additional songs. And it just lists the artist and the songs, but there's nothing about this that tells you that these are exclusive songs, which I think is a really big mistake. So, accept up to the limit Dio, Hungry for Heaven, Jimi Hendrix, Can You See Me, Kiss, Heaven's on Fire. I mean, you might just think, oh, Kiss, Heaven's on Fire, I've already got that, But it's a live version of Kiss, Heaven's on Fire. It's got Y&T, Go for the Throat. You might think, oh, that's all from their live album, right? Because it's on Go for the Throat, which is not on any of their studio albums, but it's on live. There's a live version on it here. It's on Open Fire. But actually, what's cool is the version Go for the Throat on here is actually a studio version. So it's kind of a bit of an exclusive. So I think they kind of didn't do themselves any favors. Not only do you have the great song Stars, but there's also a lot of these are all either rare B-sides or rare studio tracks or live tracks. So it's really worth having this album. So I just think it's a mistake not to have put that down on the back cover. All right, now just to finish off, I'd like to talk about some live albums. Now, the first few I'm going to show are live albums where all the songs are new songs. So they've done a whole album, and usually live albums are, songs that people know about that they've heard on studio albums. This is where artists have decided to put out a new album, but it's recorded live. So new song, new tracks, but it's all recorded live. So here's one example of it, HSAS, Through the Fire. So really good album, Top of the Rock, that's a great song. But what's interesting is, these are all Sammy Hagar and Neil Schon, a lot of quite well-known names, but all putting it together. It's kind of like a super group, but all the songs. This is their first album, so of course they're new, right? But it's their first album, and all the songs are recorded live. Well, supposedly. This is an interesting one. So this is Ted Nugent, Intensity in 10 Cities. So he's been out for putting studio albums out for a while at this point. This came out in 1981. So it's a live album, but all the songs are new songs. So I think when he went out and he did the tour around this time, he would throw in a couple of new songs each night, and those songs then were put together as sort of a compilation here of all the new songs that he recorded. That were recorded live in concert. So it's live in concert, but all new songs. So, yeah. And to my knowledge, I don't know if any of those songs exist, like studio version wise. So, kind of interesting. Another interesting one, now a lesser known band. This is a band called Hunters Club. Now, I think this is their second album. It's called Burnt Alive. But all these songs here, they're pretty good songs. A pretty interesting band, actually. Kind of hard to describe. Kind of hard to describe. You got to hear them. It's kind of a little bit like The Cult, a little bit gothic, a little bit sometimes like pretty heavy as well, though too. But interesting to listen to. But interesting too. These are all new songs, so they haven't released these songs before, but they're all recorded live. I think this was that they broke up after this, but yeah, studio. It's like an album full of new songs, but recorded live. Alright, so continuing with the live theme, this is Great White. These are all live tracks. This one here has songs from 1986 and 1987. The reason I'm mentioning it is this, I don't have it, but there's another version where the first side is 1986 songs, but the second side is songs from 1983. So they don't have the 1987 songs, which is a bit unusual. And so almost if you really want to have all the songs, the Great White Live songs that were released for Recovery Live, you've got to get the other version as well, so you can get the 1983 recordings, which I haven't done, which I don't have. They might be on the CD copy, I'm not sure, but I don't. It's a mystery as to why they did that. So why some versions have 86 and 87, some have 86 and 83, and I'd like the 83 as well, but I don't have that. All right, one of the last records to show. This is a band that was well known in LA, and were sort of one of the bands that really started the hair metal hard rock scene in LA. And this is London, and Playa del Rock. So guys like Blackie Lawless and Nicky Sixx were at one time in London. I'm mentioning this album because this album can also be found with the title of Nader Priest. So he's, I think, the vocalist, and so it was changed. In fact, if you there's a Wasting Time with Jason Green. I can't remember his name. Wasting Time recently did a interview with Nader, and and he explained that basically because of the history that London had, they'd sort of been around for a while and never really achieved the success, that maybe it was a good idea to change the title or change the name of the band. So they changed the name of the band to his name. And so there are some copies where it's got his name up here, but still the same artwork, same title. I think it may only be on the CD, not on the vinyl version. So that's kind of interesting. And lastly, this is a band called Art. This is another case where it's the same album, but it's got a different title and different artwork. So I've only got this on CD. This is a band called RPLA. And what's interesting, this is self-titled. It came out in 1993. It's pretty good, sort of hard rock. Sounds a little bit like The Cult. But what's interesting is they also released an album in 1992 called Metal Queen Hijack, something like that. What did I put down here? Metal Queen Hijack. It came out in 92. You can get it on vinyl, but I haven't got it on vinyl. It's got different album cover, and but exactly the same songs. I think there was some controversy because they had come out as a gay band, and all of a sudden they had been getting quite a bit of publicity in Kerrang, and then when they came out saying they were a gay band, Kerrang stopped giving them any exposure, and then there was some controversy about that, and then so Kerrang said, hey, yeah, we'll put you guys back in the magazine. So I'm not quite sure, and so they changed their image for this album cover, and the album got sort of re-released. So it's quite the album cover for Metal Queen Hijack is a lot more glam metal looking. So same album, but different album title and different cover. So, but I think I kind of probably have explained the mystery around that. All right, well, 33 minutes, so it's been a long one, and it's been quite a bit to get through. Hopefully you found that interesting, and I'll be back with a new video soon. All right, catch you later. See ya.